Hey guys, and welcome to this video about the ABC model of depression. You can see on the spec on the screen that this falls under the psychological problems topic, and this video is going to cover everything you need to know about the ABC model. So if you have any questions or any recommendations for future videos, please leave a comment below. Also consider liking and subscribing, as I'm going to be covering everything in OCR GCSE Psychology on this channel. So the first thing you need to understand is that within psychological problems, there are two main disorders we need to understand: schizophrenia and depression. And then within depression, we need to understand two theories and one study. The study you're going to need to know about is Tandock, and the two theories are the social rank theory of depression and the ABC model. And now that you have a very brief understanding of what you need to know in terms of the spec, what you're going to need to know about the ABC model is pretty straightforward. It was coined by Ellis in 1957 and simply says that depression is a consequence of irrational beliefs. So firstly, the ABC model does stand for something. The A stands for activating event, the B stands for belief, and the C stands for consequence. And you're going to need to know how each of these three key terms relate to depression or the process of having depression. And again, it's pretty straightforward. So let's go through those three definitions now. The A is activating event, and that simply is the first thing that happens that might spark a depressive episode. We'll talk about an example in a moment. The B is the belief. It's what you think about that event, and this can either have a rational thought or an irrational thought. Now, we've all heard these words before, rational and irrational. Maybe you've said that you're scared of the dark, and someone said that's an irrational thing to think. Well, that's exactly what this B is all about. It's your belief, it's your thought process about that activating event. And finally, we come to C, consequence. What is the outcome of thinking in that way? Now, you can either have a rational or irrational outcome, and again, we're going to discuss that with a nice example. Now, imagine you're at school, you're walking down the corridor, and well, I know this will never happen to you because you're a really cool person, but imagine that when you wave at your friend, they don't wave back. Well, that's your activating event. Then you could have a belief about that event. So you can either think rationally or irrationally. Now, sadly, lots of people go down the irrational route. This would be to think to yourself, my friend hates me, I've done something wrong, and they never want to speak to me again. Or you could be more positive and go down the rational route. Do you know what? Maybe they just didn't see me. Either way, you can definitely see how your belief can have a huge impact on how you interpret an event, whether it's rational or irrational. Let's have a look at the consequences now. Now, if you have an irrational belief, it could lead to an irrational consequence. And we could joke around and say that it could make you go like this, or like this. But in reality, it'll probably lead to you blocking them, never speaking to them again, and probably ruining a real friendship. Or if you're going down the rational route, you could potentially just talk to them later, text them, say, hey, I waved at you earlier, funny story, you didn't wave back, and make a joke out of it. That would be a rational response. And you can see which of the two is probably going to be considered to be healthier. Let's test your knowledge with a midpoint activity. I've got some activating events on the screen, and I'd like you to take a pen and paper, write these down, and try and come up with a potential rational and irrational belief based on the activating event. There's no right or wrong answer, it's just so you get into the mindset of understanding what a rational or an irrational belief would look like. So pause the video and give it a go just before I put some answers on the screen, and they're going on now. And as I've said before, there is no right or wrong answer. It's just to test your knowledge of the ABC model, rational and irrational beliefs, and whether you've kind of got the whole concept locked down. So how does all of this link to depression? Well, according to Ellis's ABC model, people who have depression develop irrational thinking habits. That means people who think irrational thoughts all the time are more likely to develop depression. So there is a big criticism of the theory, and it falls under the free will determinism debate. Now, if you're unsure about these, I am going to do a full video about all the debates that you're going to need to know, so either subscribe or take a look at the channel. However, for now, all you need to know is that Ellis's ABC model supports the free will side of the argument too much. It suggests that we have too much control over our own free will, and that means that potentially we can blame people for having depression. And obviously we can see what the downsides behind that might be. So get yourselves ready for the exam zone for this video. We've got ourselves a great past paper question for you to try. It's got AO2, AO3, and even snippets of AO1, so what's not to love? Pause the video as I'm about to put the answers on the screen now. And as you can see, for the AO3 bit, we want it structured as a point, evidence, explain, and we want to make sure we're writing enough for a 3 marker. And if you've got any questions about this, please leave a comment below. I'm more than happy to help. So that covers everything you need to know about the ABC model in your OCR course. All that's left to do is try the usual bucket that I put at the end of the video. Do give it a go, it's a nice fun way of testing yourself, and otherwise take a look at the channel for any other topics you might need help on.